10 years back, I left this wonderful city when I got a job in Mumbai. And I was given the responsibility of launching a news channel. I knew nothing about launching a news channel. In fact, I knew very little about the whole business of TV production. And I was thoroughly confused. And if I may say so, I went on to launch one of the greatest disasters in the history of television news. It was considered to be a loser from the start. And people used to say then, you know, he came to launch Times Now and now it's become Times When. And they used to ridicule our people. I had ministers who ridicule our reporters. There's nothing worse for a reporter than to know he goes out on the field in the sun and he gets ridiculed by these ministers day after day after day. And it is so strange today that here you call me 10 years later. And in fact, people thought it's a matter of time when he's going to lose his job. They gave me weeks to survive. It's strange and almost a moment of epiphany for me today that you call me to talk about how I broke the clutter. I don't know. I was putting some notes together and I want to just not read out from my notes. I want to share my experience in quick 10, 15 minutes before you. That all my competitors today keep doing two things I keep telling them not to do. I said, don't copy me. Don't crib about me. Because when you copy me, you lose your identity. When you crib about me, you lose your towards life and your own profession. I don't copy, I don't crib. But I do serious journalism. There is a factory mill shed in Lower Parel in central Mumbai. What is journalistic nothingness? Because there isn't an editor within miles of where I sit. There are only bankers and investment bankers. We set the news agenda for this country. We do serious stuff. First, what we did, we broke the CWG scam, the 2G scam, the Devas ISRO scam, the Kargil for profit Adarsh, the Aircel Maxis scam. It was serious journalism that agenda and told people television does serious journalism, doesn't follow newspapers. We took risks. We took who are not nice. I can tell you some of those defense dealers we followed gate in the last 2 years of UPA 2, they're not nice. We didn't do a Sanjay Baru on the world, do a tell-all last 2 weeks of a prime ministership of a prime minister who's already been declared redundant by the entire country. We took on Dr. Manmohan Singh at the height of in 2009, 2010. We took those risks. Stands. We did serious coverage during 26/11. Ourselves the story. We made the viewers the story. And the first thing we did was we completely broke the clutter by being in our own space. Now I come to the more definitive points. We redefined the concept of neutrality in Indian journalism. And now I'll tell you through some examples. Can I ask this audience a question? If I give you an obvious choice between a right and a wrong, between black and white, and I make fact, truth stare you in the face, will you continue to be a fence sitter? And if you become a fence sitter, then is there any being a Wikipedia of journalism? Can you afford neutral when Manu Sharma, the son of a Haryana politician, is convicted for murder and then allowed parole only to be found attending parties or wedding? Can you afford to be neutral in that circumstance? Will you shy away from the law take its own course? What is this neutrality? This neutrality is the lack of conviction in the why you became a reporter and a journalist in the first place. And I'm sorry that many of the doyens of Indian journalism have forgotten why they became journalists in the first place. They're no longer journalists, they are part of the establishment. And I don't think it is the job of the Indian media to be a part of the establishment. Why does an editor want to party and be seen in literary circuits or events? Why does he not want to do his job? Why does he not confront politicians? Why does he bury stories? Why does he kill stories? Why does he want to confabulate with? He should be exposing. That's no neutrality. That has corrupted the profession of journalism. And I'm saying it is time to take ethics of journalism back in our hands. And that's what we do night after night. And I give you one example. Can you be when a 16-year-old girl is by a politician 2 years before Nirbhaya rocked the nerve center of this country, the national capital? She is a politician. When she goes to the police station and she says a real incident happened in Banda in Lakhimpur Kheri in Uttar Pradesh. So sorry that when people like Amir Khan make movies like people denigrate our profession, they don't realize the seriousness of the effort we bring. This story has touched my heart. A 16-year-old girl she goes to a police station and she tells the police officer, I want to register a case. The police officer says, who do you want to register the case against? And she says, I want to register the case against Purushottam Narayan Dwivedi. And the SHO says, but isn't that the MLA? He says, yes. Then she makes a phone call. And this MLA is the Bahujan Samaj Party from Nareni in Banda. This is before it takes over. And you know what happens? She gets arrested. Trumped up charges are put out against her. And a rape victim, a teenager who had the courage to go to a police station, ends up being in lockup herself. When the entire media lands up there, led by Time, because I'm so glad for one thing called market pressures. Without the market pressures, the rest of the Indian media would not win. I say even if they wake up because they are forced to, it's a damn good thing. We follow the story and the girl comes out triumphant, she becomes a hero. But that's the end of the story. Follow the story from there. The girl comes out. 2 weeks later, she gets to know. 16-year-old girl gets to know. There's another rape victim in a village a few miles away from where she is. A group, a self-help group of young girls, they dress in black. And they call themselves the Nagin group. And they go and rescue that other rape victim. That is why I became a journalist. And that is why when I look back on my journey, I say I was to leave this profession 10 years back. That story gives me to why I continue to be a journalist today. Because journalism can never be silent, as they say. And that is the greatest virtue and the greatest fault of journalism. I remember someone who said this. They say journalism must speak and speak immediately, while the echoes of wonder, the claims of triumph, and the signs of horror are still in the air. And there is enough horror in our country. We choose to keep our eyes closed about it. That is our foolishness. Point number 3. Confrontational journalism. Journalism is meant to confront. This basic rule has been forgotten by the independent Indian media. I feel so sorry for it. Because in the hurry and eagerness to be co-opted as part of the establishment, many people in the Indian media forget that there are so many questions to be asked against the political establishment in this country. Questions over propriety, questions over probity, misallocation of resources, misgovernance. And I'll tell you another small story. So we did this string of stories from June 2010 till January 2011. There were 6 scams. It was a rush, Harit. I look back on those days and I tell myself what was going on at that time. It is one of those inflection points, those moments in history, when suddenly these stories take over you and you realize everywhere across the country one word starts buzzing. Corruption, corruption, corruption. Which is why I told Arvind Kejriwal when he told me in his house in December last year, he said, you can't criticize me, Arvind said. I said, of course I'll criticize you. Because before there was an Arvind Kejriwal or an Anna Hazare or a Kiran Bedi, there was channels like us doing stories on scams. You just turned it into something that you marketed for the political purpose you wanted to achieve. But that's not the story. In January 2011, there was a press conference of the Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, which is itself is a strange thing because Manmohan Singh was about to do something he never does. He was about to speak. I never come to Delhi for these reasons. I feel so ill at ease. I feel uncomfortable. Honestly, I'm confessing before you today, I have never been on a Prime Minister's flight. And they tell me it is, one of the prized perks of the job. Of course, Mr. Modi has taken it away for the sorrow of many. He doesn't take editors on flights anymore. One of the perks of the job is to travel with the Prime Minister, drink champagne, have a good life. What you're doing, what you're reporting, nobody knows. So the Manmohan Singh decided to do a press conference. And the press conference happened within 3 days of a national hammering of the government on another scam at that time called the Devas ISRO scam. Unfortunately, that scam sort of slipped away. And I was number 13, unfortunately, in a group of 14 editors who had been invited. And when I entered the Prime Minister's office, I realized home, actually 7 Racecourse Road, there were 5 or 6 bodyguards only around me, and Harish Khare was giving me dirty looks from the time I entered. He was the Prime Minister's media advisor. 12 editors asked questions. Now, I'm not here to criticize my fellow professionals. But when the whole country is talking about corruption, 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 and one editor says, Mr. Prime Minister, I feel this is the right way to run the country's economy. And the Prime Minister says, very good, very good. That's a good suggestion. And my jaw's dropping, and I'm asking myself, who'll ask the question on 2G, CWG, coalition politics, compulsions of coalition politics, and the Devas ISRO scam? Editor number 9 asked a question. He said, Mr. Prime Minister, what is your message for Sachin Tendulkar? I wanted to exit the room immediately. My profession was being denigrated before my eyes. When I asked the question on the Devas ISRO scam, and I asked it, I wasn't aggressive. I asked a simple question. I said, Mr. Prime Minister, you have to make compromises, you say, but I'll read out the question, okay? I said, Mr. Prime Minister, you have to make compromises. There can't be any compromises with corruption, and that cannot be a compromise even if you're running a coalition. And sometimes when corruption happens right under your nose, Mr. Prime Minister, there is a general view that the ISRO scam has not been exposed by the media. The deal would have gone through. My specific question to you on the Devas ISRO deal is that there are people in your government, allegedly in the Prime Minister's office, there are people in the closed bureaucracy who were in the know about the deal after the decision to blacklist the company was taken in July. Now, we know they were still in the backroom talks with the same blacklisted company till a few weeks back. In that context, Mr. Prime Minister, there are people in the know of the deal and the delayed action on the deal and the continued talks which we are told is normal. Mr. Prime Minister, is it normal to have backroom talks with a blacklisted company? Now, what is my fault? It's a little long, the question. When I read it out, I realize that. But it was the relevant question. Short of being thrown out of the room, I was insulted in a press conference of the Prime Minister of India. And the media advisor to the Prime Minister of India says that this is not your program, this is not Times Now. You have to ask questions, this is not an inquisition of the Prime Minister. I felt very lonely in that room that day because I got no defense. I would have expected everyone there to protest against the way in which an independent journalist is treated in this country. So my question to you is this. You have to confront, and somewhere the beauty and the passion of this business is that with that confrontation you will expose the truth. People ask me, Arnab, what did you achieve? Eventually it's going to boil down to nothing. I am not one of those cynics, because I'll tell you something. CWG scam, July 30th, 2010. Kalmadi resigned November 9th, 2010. 2G scam, November 3rd, 2010. Raja resigns 14th November 2010. Kanimodi arrested May 20th, 2011. Kargil for profit, October 20th, 2010 is the expose. Ashok Chavan sacked on November 9, 2010. Aircel Maxis scam, July 2nd, 2011. Maran resigns July 7th, 2011. If this is not impact, I don't know what is. We have restored some seriousness and the belief of this country back into this profession. And therefore, point number 3 simply is the value of confrontational journalism. Question number 4 is very simple. I'll keep it short. There is too much subservience which has crept into our profession. And a minister asked me recently, he said, you didn't congratulate me. Don't you know I became a minister and got this big portfolio? I said, yeah. Why didn't you congratulate me? I said, because I don't do badhai ho journalism. I said, there are enough people who will call you and say, congratulations, I am so pleased for you. But I don't have to massage your ego. There is too much subservience which has crept into our profession. And the Radia tapes proved that there was something which was seriously wrong in our profession. You know, you can't have a cozy club and talk about breaking the clutter. There's so many news channels today. How much differentiation do you find if I were to be the critic of my own profession? And why is that? Because you're dishing out the same stuff. Isn't there stuff to report, things to question, people to challenge? Of course they are. But the Radia tape suggested to me that these cozy clubs existed, raising questions about journalistic credibility. You know, when we broke the Kargil for profit scam, Ashok Chavan tried to call me at 8:30. We'd broken the story the day before, and we called it Kargil for profit because we didn't want to call it Adarsh. You know, in this country, you call it an Adarsh scam and environmental clearances not being given to a building and nobody cares. We deliberately called it Kargil for profit because we wanted the world to know that here was the name of Kargil and the sacrifices of our martyrs which was being marketed to get personal property. So we called the story Kargil for profit. And Ashok Chavan called me that day. And just minutes before my 9 p.m. show, I had a 20-minute chat with him. And he said, just pull back the story, pull back the story. He kept threatening me, you know, don't do the story, don't do the story, don't do the story. Sort of suggesting that I was a very vulnerable person sitting in Mumbai if I were to do the story. Now, I told Ashok Chavan 5 minutes to 9, I said, Mr. Chavan, I'm going on air. There's an OB van outside your house. All that I can do for you is that I can ask you to come on my show. He didn't come. I don't know why he didn't. He should have come in my view. But in one day, he had to resign. Ladies and gentlemen, it is so easy to put people in their place. Does journalism talk to the people in power as equals, or is there too much of a subservience being built into the profession? These are some of the questions I want those who declare themselves falsely to be my competition to ask themselves. The question they must ask themselves today is not why Times Now is winning. The question they must ask themselves today is why their form of journalism is losing. Because their form of journalism is not relating to the sentiments of the people in this country. And my last point is this: put people first. You want to break the clutter, you put people first. I became a journalist 19 years back. Next month I finish 19 years as a television journalist. I probably have another decade, 2 decades, hopefully a little bit more if I can stretch it. I close my eyes today and I ask myself, what is the most magical moment in your professional life? The most magical day as a journalist, which you will remember on the day you retire or the day you close your eyes and die. For me, the most magical moment is my profession. There were 3 actually. The 2 smaller ones was on the day Kalmadi was arrested. Because so many people told me, don't take him on. When I came to Delhi, people would tell me, you're doing the wrong thing. You don't know what you're getting into. There are big fish out there or not. I don't do Sanjay Baru's. I don't write books in the last 2 weeks of a prime ministership. I took him on, and I unfortunately must tell you, I was also told that there were some people who were giving Mr. Kalmadi free advice on how to handle me, and some of those were people in my own profession. That's unfortunate. But the day Kalmadi was arrested was a moment of epiphany for me, because I realized you challenge the system, you can win. The second moment was, of course, when the Prime Minister had to pull out 8 sheets of paper to answer my question that day in January 2011. But the happiest day of my life, a day I will carry with me always, is the day I'm criticized for by a lot of people, but which I hold dear to me. That is the day when 5-year-old Prince came out of that, he'd fallen into a manhole in Kurukshetra. We had lost out as a channel. Everyone was ridiculing us. And I'll end with a small story. 10 years back before that, 1996, I had just come back from Oxford. I was beginning my career as a journalist. And Appan Menon, my news editor, told me, Arnab, there is a child who has fallen into a ditch outside a public school, a very well-known public school in South Delhi. Will you cover the story? And I said, Appan, no, I don't want to cover the story. And he said, why? I said, Appan, I'm so well educated, Appan. And I didn't come back to do stories of children falling in ditches. I came back to cover foreign policy, economic affairs. I want to anchor a program. I want to do big things. I don't want to do a story. about a child falling into a manhole. And he said, you don't care whether the child will die or not. I actually had no answer. I was completely selfish. 10 years later, when we had launched Times Now and someone called me and said, you know, on this Saturday, what stories are there? There's a one story about some boy who's fallen into a ditch in Kurukshetra. He said, but boss, don't worry about it. It's a Hindi channel type of story. I said, what is a Hindi channel story? He said, no, it's a, the Hindi channels will do it. For 6 days or so, 4 or 5 days, we did this story. And every living moment, when we started getting images of that small boy struggling to breathe, 20, 30 meters under the ground, struggling to breathe. And when he came out alive after 3 days, everybody had one name on their lips, and that was Prince. For me, that was the day journalism woke up again in my heart. That was the day I realized I need to be a journalist for a little while longer. And there are a lot of people out there who don't understand the roots, merits, and reasons behind this beautiful profession called journalism. Who in their bitterness that they have lost the ratings battle with me criticize me. Who don't understand what drives me and my team of 20-somethings running a wonderful channel from Lower Parel. The day Prince came out, I realized why I was a journalist. And I tell you one thing, after that moment, I am not afraid of anything, or anyone, or any political party or pressure group or interest group. Because journalism woke up once again in 2006, the day Prince came out. This is why I do what I do. I hope I continue to have your love and your viewership. And I hope that if I make mistakes in my career, you correct me. The day you question my integrity, I will leave this profession. For me, only 2 things matter, greater than viewership, greater than success: integrity and credibility. And I hope I continue to have that as long as I remain a journalist. Thank you very much. Thank you.